welcome back to Wine Slug. So it's Memorial Day weekend and it's early in the morning. I'm drinking my cup of coffee and I figured it's Memorial Day. I don't know how this ties together, but let's make some mead. So I've never made mead before. I've got a couple kits. I've got my Pinot kit going down, settling downstairs now. And I really wanted to do a grape wine with real grapes and do the fermentation myself instead of just doing it through the kits. But obviously it's the springtime, so grapes aren't ready yet. So so I wanted to try something different with some real fruit. So I decided on mead. Never made it before. Actually, never drank it before. So I've watched some videos, read a bit about it, and I'm going to make two kinds. I'm going to try and make a blackberry and a raspberry. So I've got a mix of clover honey and orange blossom honey. I've got my pot to mix in. I've got a couple gallons of distilled water and two 1 gallon jugs. So the idea is I'm going to make 1 gallon of each. The process is going to be mixing 1 gallon at a time of water with the honey. Mixing, it says 3, depending on what recipe or what website you go to, what video you watch, people say anywhere from 3 to 3.5 pounds of honey per gallon. So I'm going to start off with 3. I'm going to take a hydrometer reading to see where we're at as far as what the specific gravity is, and then if I need to add another half a pound of honey, I'll do that. And then what I'm going to do is, after that's done, I'm going to push that into 1 of the gallon jugs, add my fruit right to the jug, and then I'm going to add potassium I always have trouble with that word. Potassium metabisulfate, a quarter teaspoon per gallon, just to try and kill off any natural yeast in the fruit. And then after that's done, I'll let that sit for 24 hours so that the metabisulfate runs its course. And once that happens, after 24 hours, then I can add in my yeast nutrients, because there's not a lot of nutrients here for the yeast to live off of. So I'm going to add in some yeast nutrient, and I'm going to also add the yeast that I'm going to use is a Lavalin D47. So that's what I've read online. A bunch of people have used to make mead, and that's what the guy at my local brew store suggested. So, and that local brew store will be Jay's Brewing. I'll give them a shout out. So it'll be somewhere in here whenever I do the editing of this video. All right. So with that, let's get to it. Small container. I'm going to add in a little bit of distilled water to dissolve the sodium or the potassium metabisulfate. Set that off to the side. Sanitize this, not by using any solution. I just heated it up so it was wicked hot, and to kill anything in the pan. All right, honey. Pretty simple. Sanitize plastic spoon. Just remember, sanitize everything, keep everything clean. Now the gist of this is to get all the honey off the sides of the container, and the bottom, get it all dissolved into the water. Obviously not from experience, but from just watching multiple videos online, and also reading. Some suggest that you warm the water. I had a hot pan and I poured the water in it, so it's a little bit warm, just to help with dissolving. Alright, I'm good. It's all mixed in. There's no gooey stuff left over when I pull the spoon out, so I think we're good. Gonna take a hydrometer reading. Alright, I've got a specific gravity now of 1.16. So, which equates to about a potential alcohol content of right around 12.5% to 13%. So the yeast can go up to 14%. So I'm going to add in the other half a pound of honey. Take one more hydrometer reading, and then that, I imagine, will pop it up to probably 1.11 or 1.1 specific gravity reading, which will get me to around the 14% alcohol. So, alright. The final hydrometer reading was 1.104 specific gravity, which equates to approximately just under 14% ABV. So it's good. So I'm going to take this, put it into the 1 gallon jug, add in my fruit. I'm not going to. I wish I had a smaller fermentation jug for these. I'll have to buy one at some point in time, but I'm just going to ferment in the small gallon carboy, and then I'll transfer to another carboy after fermentation is complete. So hopefully I'll leave enough room so that it doesn't bubble over when fermentation starts. We'll see. Alright, so as you can tell, I've got this gallon jug. I still have, after adding the honey, I still need to add the fruit. I've got way too much for the gallon jug. So I've got 2 3-gallon carboys. So I'm going to use those as my fermentation tanks this time, my fermentation containers this time. So I'm going to transfer this to my 3-gallon, and that gives me plenty of room so that it doesn't bubble over, and plenty of room for the fruit to go in. Alright? Alright, so I've got my Blackberry Mead made for now. I added in I took about half a cup of water, a quarter teaspoon of potassium metabisulfate, mixed in there until it was dissolved, put it in here. I rinsed off my blackberries, made sure I took off, there's a couple that had mold on them, so I took those out and threw them out. So this is I'm going to put an airlock on here, but before that, I'm going to give it kind of a once over. Just to make sure it's mixed in there. I'm good to go. I'm going to put the top on tomorrow morning. That's about, what time is it? 9:30, early. Gotta get myself another cup of coffee. I'm gonna put an airlock on this just to make sure I'll bed. Just to keep the bad stuff out. And tomorrow at this time, I will take the airlock off, add in my yeast nutrient, add in the yeast, and let it ferment for 2 weeks or so. Alright, now I'll speed through my raspberry mead. Is going to be the same exact thing, so I'll just show you when it's done. Alright, so now I've got my raspberry mead done. One thing I didn't tell you guys earlier was how much fruit I used. I used a 12-ounce package and a 6-ounce package, so it's 18 ounces altogether, so just over a pound of blackberries and just over a pound of raspberries. So give this one shake. And also made a mistake on the earlier blackberry, as far as a recommendation is, when you've got the potassium metabisulfate, keep the top off. It lets it outgas, because the fumes, if you had a lot in there, would be bad. So take the airlock off and just let it outgas, and then you'll put the airlock back on once we start the fermentation process. So with that, we'll catch you tomorrow when I do the fermentation. Hey, we're back. So it's been 24 hours and we're ready to add the yeast. So the potassium metabisulfite should have run its course, and the must for both the raspberry and blackberry mead should be ready for adding the yeast. So what I need to do is I also need to add yeast nutrient. I'll add a teaspoon of yeast nutrient into both of these containers, stir it up to make sure that it's all dissolved, as well as kicking up some of the sediment that's already occurred in these two carboys of my mead. And then, but before that, I've got two lukewarm things of water, containers of water. So I'm going to start my yeast there, and allow about 15 minutes to kind of kickstart. If you look on the web for mead, there's a lot of suggestions for D47, and that's what the guy at my local homebrew shop suggested. But there's also, if you look online, this RC212 from Lapland is also seen as a potential use for mead. So I'm going to try both just to see. It'd be better if I had two different jugs of the same kind of mead, but so I could tell the difference. But I'm going to give it a try. So plus, when I took the specific gravity of this, you didn't see it in the earlier parts of the videos, but the specific gravity for the raspberry mead came out higher. Came out at 1.110, so that's about an ABV of around 15% or so. D47 is supposed to be only good until up to 14% alcohol, so I'm going to do the D47, Lapland D47 yeast strain for the blackberry, and I'm going to use the Lapland RC212 yeast strain, which has a higher alcohol potential for my raspberry mead. So let's get started. It's easy. You just rip it open and put it in. So this is a 2-on-2. This one will go just so you see it. Let me get out of the picture. There we go. Lapland. So that's for the raspberry. Now, usually for the kit lines, I've used, these are 5-gram packets, and these are only one gallon a piece. So I've used 5-gram packet for the for 5 gallons of wine before, for all the wine kits. So I think, here we go, let's put D47 just so you can see what the package looks like. There you go. So I was going to split these in half and just use half the packet, but there's no harm or foul in adding additional yeast. Whatever just doesn't get used up will settle out. So if you put too much in, it's not that big of a deal. If you don't put enough in, then you're in trouble. All right. So I'm gonna let that sit, and I'm gonna put in right before I add the yeast. So I'm gonna let this sit for 15 minutes. Then I'm gonna add in the yeast nutrient, mix these both up, get them stirred up, and then add the yeast. So I'll be back in 15. All right, I'm back after it's been about 15 minutes. Letting the yeast sit in the warm water. So it should start. I don't get a lot of bubbling, but I haven't ever had this fail. So I'm gonna pitch it anyway. I get a little bit of bubbling, so it's starting. But what I failed to mention before was since it's fruit, typically I've read that you're supposed to add pectic enzyme. It helps with clarity afterwards, and it also helps with pulling fruit, the flavors and the colors from the fruit, and pulling it into the wine, or in this case the mead. So I did add already a quarter teaspoon of pectic enzyme into both the blackberry and the raspberry mead. Now I'm going to add in the 1 teaspoon of yeast nutrient. Stir it up, and then I'll add in the yeast itself, and then we should be good to go. Put the airlocks on and then wait for a couple weeks. There's 1 teaspoon there. That sound that you hear in the background is my dog. That's Berg, you saw in the Pinot Noir video. The wine slug mascot. He's kind of a pain. But he doesn't drink him and wine, so it's not too bad. Alright, mix this in good. Now we're ready for the yeast. Pitch in the yeast. So this is the Lavalin RC212. Higher tolerance to higher alcohol. This is a Lavalin D47. Now, all the wine kits they suggest that you just put the yeast, pour it on top and don't stir it in. So I'm going to, depending on what videos you watch on YouTube or Berg, just here, this is what I'm dealing with. This is, he's Berg. He's not much help today. Not much help at all. Hold on, bud. So some videos suggest that, yeah, like I've seen that where they shake this up and get the yeast all in there, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stick with the recommendations from all the wine kits, or from the few wine kits that I've done. So I'm just going to let it sit on top. It's going to end up getting dispersed. So that's what I'm going to do. So put the airlocks on. And this is the video 1 of probably a 3-part series. I'm going to do this one just like the Pinot Noir. And so my next video set with this will be a couple of shots of during fermentation, and then when fermentation ends, transferring these, racking these into the 1 gallon jugs, the smaller jugs. So with that, this is the first try at mead, so hopefully it turns out right. See you in the next video. Slug on.